So good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're here for the housing provider orientation, you're in the right place. My name is Alexis Eykel, and I'm the landlord engagement specialist here at Tacoma Housing Authority. And I'm joined by Rainey Estevez. She is a housing specialist here in our rental assistance department. And we're gonna review our housing provider orientation with you this morning. More important than anything is that we just say thank you because of partners like you and our very important partnerships with housing providers, aka landlords. We are able to provide housing for almost 11,000 individuals here in the city of Tacoma. And so with those very important partnerships like yours, we're able to help folks keep their kiddos in school and create life goals and just help them thrive. So our goal is to do a little bit more than just provide that housing dollar. It is to help them be, just thrive in life. And we can't do that without you guys. So thank you. Today's agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about Tacoma Housing Authority, some key relationships and contracts, the Housing Choice Voucher, benefits to housing providers, how the program works, completing the request for tenancy approval. We'll talk about some inspection issues and what we look for, some resources for you guys, and then we'll have some questions and answers as well. So Tacoma Housing Authority does real estate development. We now have over 1,500 units in the city of Tacoma. We are in the process of building about 231 units here on Hilltop called Housing Hilltop. We also do property management. We own and manage affordable apartments for rent. We are the largest residential housing provider in the area here. We do provide rental assistance by helping people pay their rent in private market units. And we are also moving to work public housing authority. And what moving to work means is basically a federal program that allowed a select number of housing authorities, currently 126 housing authorities, design, implement, and evaluate innovative ways to deliver federal housing assistance, like the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And THA has been a participant since 2010 in the Moving to Work federal program. We were one of the first organizations allocated those MTW or Moving to Work funds. For example, my position is paid with the MTW funds, and that allows us to really nurture those relationships with housing provider partners. So yeah, and then we also have supportive services. So we have a client support and empowerment department for our tenants that live at our properties and also for our voucher program participants. So yeah. And so our vision is we envision a future where everyone has a safe and nurturing home, where neighborhoods are attractive places and to live, work, attend school, shop, and play, and where everyone has the support they need to succeed as parents, students, wage earners, and neighbors.
So I'm going to be talking about Tacoma Housing Authority's mission statement. Tacoma Housing Authority's mission statement is to provide high quality, stable, and sustainable housing and supportive services for people in need. It does this in ways that help them prosper and help our communities become a safe, vibrant, prosperous, attractive, and just. Next, we're going to talk about who we serve. Tacoma Housing Authority, currently pays over $40 million in rental assistance subsidies to housing providers each year. We cannot do this without our partnership with our housing providers, landlord owners. As you can see, there is just a brief graph of the people in Tacoma. There's currently 10,790 people in Tacoma. And out of those 10,793, there are 4,393 households that receive rental assistance from Tacoma Housing Authority. And out of that, 1,586 households live in Tacoma Housing Authority owned properties, and 740 are financed units that Tacoma Housing Authority helped other nonprofits finance or developed.
These are our programs. So currently we have 606 project-based vouchers. And what that means is the subsidy is assigned to the unit basically. And it is an amount based on the tenant's income, and the voucher stays with the unit when the tenant moves. And we have 428 project-based subsidies. And that consists of 7 nonprofit housing providers, and again, it's fixed subsidy regardless of income change, and that is set on an annual basis with the owner. And the most important thing we're going to talk about today is the Housing Choice Voucher Program. That's the traditional Section 8 voucher program, and that's income-based, and that allows folks to rent in the private market, and the voucher remains with the tenant. And so this is Tacoma Housing Authority's jurisdiction. So our Housing Choice Voucher clients can lease up anywhere in the city of Tacoma and 2.5 miles outside of the city of Tacoma. And this is a little map that shows the areas. And as you'll see, they can go into parts of Gig Harbor. They can go out into Lakewood, Midland, and some parts of Waller as well. And we do have a really handy tool on our website that will allow you to check an address. And again, I'm a really great point of contact if you have a rental property and you want me to check your address for you to see if our clients can lease up there. Please feel free to contact me. And then we're going to talk in a little bit about some special voucher programs, and those folks can lease up anywhere in Pierce County. So, yeah. So some key relationships and contracts. So Congress appropriates funding, and then HUD allocates and awards that funding to public housing authorities like Tacoma Housing Authority. So Tacoma Housing Authority then issues vouchers to our participants, and the voucher really specifies the family program participant obligations. So we have a contract with the family that shows all of their obligations, and we'll review that here in a little bit. And then the housing assistance payment contract is between Tacoma Housing Authority and the landlord, and that really specifies our obligations and the owner's obligations as well. And then the lease is between the tenants and the landlord, and that specifies tenant and landlord obligations.
So I'm going to be talking about the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is the abbreviation is HCV. The Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is also formally known as Section 8, is designed to help eligible low-income families to obtain affordable housing and to provide families more options in housing selections. With this, families can select housing within a neighborhood of their choice from a private market housing provider. The rent is subsidized, or the rent subsidy allows family to pay a reasonable share of their income toward rent while on the program and make up the difference.
So again, we have our Housing Choice Voucher, and folks can get a Housing Choice Voucher from our wait list. And with our moving to work flexibility, we were able to create about 15 different special purpose voucher programs. And we'll briefly review some of those with you. Again, there's about 15 of them. So we're not going to go into great detail about all of them. We just want to give you guys a good idea of some specific populations we're able to serve because of our MTW flexibility.
So the special purpose vouchers was given the first one, the Family Unification Program, which is also known as FUP. Families who lack adequate housing and is a primary factor in either the imminent placement of the family's child or children, or delay the discharge of the child or children to the family from out-of-home care. Next one is the Family Unification Program Youth, which is FUP-Y. And this program is designed for individuals, this is a targeted age group of 18 to 24 years old who left foster care at the age of 16 or older, or will leave foster care within the next 90 days who are homeless or at the risk of being homeless. The next one is the Foster Youth to Independence, which the abbreviation is FYI. This one again is a targeted age group requiring 18 to 24-year-olds who left foster care at the age of 16 or older, or will leave foster care within the next 90 days who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. Both FYI and FYI are time limited up to 3 years and they could have an additional 2 years for a total of 5 years being on program. The next one is the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, which is commonly known as VASH. This program helps homeless veterans with case management services and clinical services provided by the VA. Next one, we have a project-based VASH. This program is designed to help homeless veterans with case management services, clinical services, also provided by the VA. Next one, we have our emergency housing voucher. This program in particular is partnered with Pierce County Coordinated Entry, and it helps families or individuals who are homeless, at risk of being homeless, fleeing a domestic violence situation, a dating violence, stalking, human trafficking, recently became homeless, or at the risk of housing instability.
Thank you. And so these are a couple more special purpose vouchers, and I will highlight, let's see, the mainstream voucher, Pierce County Human Services, and then again, we have project-based, and the referral partner for that is our project partner. Kind of like a couple slides ago, we were showing the different voucher programs that we have. Let's see here. And do you want to talk about a couple of these ones?
Yes, so as you can see, we have other various, these ones are sunset subsidies, meaning that the top three, the Children's Housing Opportunity Family Recovery Court engaged the Children's Housing Opportunity Program and the College Housing Assistance Program through TCC. Those were all before prior this year were at a time limit of 5 years. However, now our new applicants are able to receive a traditional housing choice voucher, which means that they are no longer limited to timeframes. I'll highlight the Children's Housing Opportunity Program, which the acronym is CHOP. This program is designed to help families who lack adequate housing and is the primary factor in either the imminent placement of the family's children or delay the discharge of the child or children to the family from out-of-home care.
Thank you. And so how a voucher works, right? So Tacoma Housing Authority will pay the landlord directly, which is a housing assistance payment, and we love acronyms here, so we call that a HAP payment. And then the clients or your tenants will pay a portion of their income towards rent to you, and then they'll pay utilities to the utility provider.
So this is a step process of when our participants or our applicants are eligible. Low-income families have been issued a shopping voucher. So it highlights the process between 1 through 11, basically stating that, you know, when a client is issued a voucher, they are out to search for an accessible unit of their choice. Once they have located a unit of their choice, the landlord screens them for their application and accepts them. Once the landlord has accepted our client for being a tenant, then the landlord will complete a request for tenancy approval, which is a paper packet provided from Tacoma Housing Authority, and that is to be submitted on our website. Again, you know, once we receive that completed request for tenancy approval packet, we will hand it over to one of our fabulous housing standard quality inspectors to schedule an inspection. The unit must be rent ready upon the inspection, the schedule of the inspection. And once the unit has been passed inspection from our inspectors, that is when Tacoma Housing Authority should receive a signed lease from the tenant and the landlord and or agent. And once we receive that lease, then in return, we will review it and we will issue or implement and send out a housing assistant payment contract to the landlord and or agent for review and signature. Once we have received that signed housing assistant payment contract, then we can issue the first payment for our participants. And this time frame, steps 4 to 11 takes approximately 20 to 45 days.
Thank you. So benefits for housing providers. So consistent rental payments from Tacoma Housing Authority, flexibility and stability. If the client's income changes and they report those changes to us, we can adjust our subsidy. So you can continue to receive contract rent. We have a robust supply of tenants. We, on average, have about 300 households with vouchers looking for housing at any given time. And we have targeted marketing as well. We have a internal free vacant unit listing form that a lot of our partners list available vacant units on, and we share those with folks shopping for housing as well. And so we are active members in the associations. Like I said before, we are also landlords. So we are active members with Rental Housing Association of Washington, Washington Multifamily Housing Association, and the National Association of Residential Property Managers. We are members of the Pierce County chapter for NARPM. And again, we are a housing provider and we understand what you guys are going through, and what you need from us and what our clients, what you need from our clients as well. And we have a landlord advisory board here. We've had one since 2004, and we really lean on the advisory board members to help with policy changes and ways to improve our processes. You may or may not see that we make a lot of changes here at Tacoma Housing Authority, and that a lot of it is based on feedback from housing provider partners, because we want to streamline our processes with you guys. So we implemented a housing provider contact form, which we'll go over in a little bit. We accept requests for tenancy approvals online now, and we have a customer care team. So you really don't have to try to figure out which of our 30 housing specialists you have to contact for one of the tenants living in your properties. You can just email our customer care team now. So you have one point of contact when it comes to client specific issues. And so housing provider supportive services. So you guys have me, and I have a team as well. We have some housing navigators that help our clients look for housing, and they are part of our landlord engagement team. And we have inspections by certified housing quality standards staff as well. So lease enforcements, we cannot enforce your notices or your lease agreements, but we can counsel participants on complying with their obligations, and Rainey will review those participant obligations with you here in a little bit. And we provide trainings and one-on-one assistance for our landlord partners. So we have our monthly housing provider orientation. I host legislative updates after legislative session ends with Landlord Solutions and Housing Justice Project together. And looking ahead, we're going to be hosting many topic-based trainings about residential landlord tenant law topics. More details on that soon. We have inspector trainings. We host private trainings. I can come to you and speak to you and your staff anytime. And we have Department of Commerce do trainings. Gosh, we have a lot of trainings for our housing provider partners that a lot of folks would normally have to pay through if they wanted those trainings. So we also have free fair housing training with City of Tacoma. And one of my favorite things to do is our annual Regional Public Housing Authority Landlord Symposium, because we realize that you guys are also working with our partners at King County Housing Authority, Seattle Housing Authority. And so we get together and hold annual landlord symposiums as well. How the program works.
So this is just a reminder of the key players that Tacoma Housing Authority administers the program, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, or our special purpose vouchers as well. The connection with the family and THA is that the voucher specifies the family's obligation to receive and continue receiving rental assistance. And the connection with the family and connection with the family and the owner or landlord is to obtain a lease that specifies the tenant and landlord obligations. And the connection between the owner, landlord, and Tacoma Housing Authority is the housing assistance payment, which is also known as the HAP contract that specifies owner and Tacoma Housing Authority's obligations.
Thank you. So owner responsibilities, right? Screen your tenants, maintain the property in good condition, complete repairs within a reasonable time, comply with the Washington State Landlord Tenant Law, and please enforce your lease agreement. If the client is not following your lease agreement, please enforce it and send us any notices or written communications with that tenant, especially about lease violations. Submit requests for Tacoma Housing Authority. Rent increases online. That is the only way we accept rent change requests is online.
I'm going to be talking about our participant responsibilities. As you can see, our participants do have obligations and responsibilities with Tacoma Housing Authority, such as providing proof of citizenship and eligibility, to allow Tacoma Housing Authority and a landlord to inspect the unit, and cannot own or have any interest in a unit, and no corrupt or illegal activity. And our participants, their responsibilities and obligations to their landlord and or agent is to pay their rent monthly and utility bills. Their principal place of residence is that unit, because they cannot sublease the unit or allow anyone else to move in without permission, and to notify the landlord prior to vacating the unit. And also, of course, our participants cannot damage the unit or the premises. I'm going to be talking about our online briefing. So HUD regulations require Tacoma Housing Authority to conduct mandatory briefings for applicant families. The briefing provides a broad description of owner and family responsibilities. And it also explains the Tacoma Housing Authority's procedures and includes instructions on how to lease a unit, such as once THA has approved an eligible low-income family, the participant will attend our online briefing course, which highlights the program overview, program partnerships, their voucher size and term, shopping for a home, leasing the home, how the rent is calculated, and what to expect after moving into their unit, and also moving or relocating while on program, and their rights and obligations.
And we will send a link to this online briefing out just so you guys can see for yourselves what our clients are learning before they get their voucher issued.
So next, here you will see Tacoma Housing Authority's participant obligation form, what it looks like. This form is to be signed by all adult household members at each recertification or relocation, which is also known as moving. The purpose to have Tacoma Housing Authority's families sign a participant obligations form is to have the families be reminded of their obligations while on program. This is an example of what a one-bedroom shopping guide looks like once a family has been issued a voucher. This shopping guide provides various examples of maximum of the suggested contract rent, which is also known as a payment standard for a unit, depending on who pays utilities. Either it can be landlord pays all utilities and what the participant's portion of rent would be. Same thing goes if, what if the tenant pays all utilities? Or if the landlord pays only sewer and water, and it gives various examples to our participants of what their portion of rent could be. So next, I'm going to be talking about our payment standards. Tacoma Housing Authority's voucher payment standards set the maximum amount the agency pays for attendance rent. The voucher payment standards are not the maximum rent. So we do have a set limit of certain voucher, our bedroom sizes for voucher sizes as well when it comes to what Tacoma Housing Authority can pay on behalf for our participants that can be charged, or the subsidy that tenants receive. So of course, you know, being a moving to work agency, we do have that flexibility for our participants compared to other traditional public housing authorities, where our participants can actually find a unit that's a little bit higher than their payment standard, their voucher size, and they can just pay the difference of their minimum tenant portion, and then they'll pay the difference for that unit.
Yeah, thank you. And like you'll see on the shopping guide, our clients, when they start applying for units, they will have the shopping guide, and this is what they should be showing you guys for their subsidy. And here you'll just see our calculations if the clients are paying over our payment standards. So yeah, the shopping guide is pretty useful for that. But yeah, it's really important to know our clients can pay over the payment standards. So this is, again, our housing choice voucher payment standards, and it just shows, you know, studio all the way to 4 bedrooms, what the gross payment standard is, less the utility allowance. That's what the UA means. So we have a suggested rent range for like a 1 bedroom. So if the landlord pays all utilities, our gross payment standard is $1,373. If they do not pay all utilities, then that utility allowance would be subtracted. And so the suggested rent range given should be between $1,218 or $1,373, depending on utility allowance. And if the rent is over our payment standard, the clients can pay that additional amount as long as the unit is determined rent reasonable. Now it looks like we have a question here. Oh, thanks, Rainey. Perfect. Yeah, so gosh, thanks. Okay, so one of my favorite topics, completing request for tenancy approval packets. So we only accept requests for tenancy approval packets online. We had a RAFTA packet that was like so many pages long, and we narrowed those RAFTA packets down because now you can submit a lot of the information in our online form, and we tried to eliminate it just to HUD required forms that you guys have to fill out by hand. So what we really need in those RAFTA submissions is the legal owner of the property's name. Sometimes front desk staff at like ABC Property Management Company will, like, let's just pretend her name is like Shannon Smith, right? They will say, oh, Shannon Smith is the legal owner, when it's like, actually, an LLC or somebody else might own it. And the way we look the owner accounts up in our system is by the legal owner's name. So that can hold a request for tenancy approval packet from moving forward if the legal owner of the name, legal owner's name is not on that RAFTA packet. And we would have to search for the owner based on other information. So please, please, please make sure the legal owner's name is listed. Make sure to attach that request for tenancy approval packet. We need the owner's tax ID or social security number, and a primary address where that 1099 will be mailed. And just so you know, we use the address on the W-9 that you guys submit for the owner as their mailing address. We need proof of ownership, the deed, closing statement, or something from the treasurer assessor's website, and property management agreement if we're not paying the owner. So it will ask if there's an agent for the owner, and that basically means the property management company. And then you'll need to know the payment type as well that you guys want, if you want direct deposit or a paper check.
So this is the outline for our request for tenancy approval paper packet that if one of our tenants have found a unit at one of your locations and you guys accepted them for being a tenant, this is what they will provide to you. So this is like I said, this is the front page, the outline of our request for tenancy approval, and it highlights like what is the request for tenancy approval, also known as a RAFTA. when to expect an inspection, what happens if the unit fails or passes, and does THA need a copy of the lease? Well, yes, of course we do, but it also highlights, why is it essential that Tacoma Housing Authority obtains a copy of the signed lease, when to expect a housing assistance payment, and highlights over the HAP contract. And does THA pay direct deposit? Yes, we do, if that option is selected. And when should you be expecting a payment? And last but not least is that once you have completed the request for tenancy approval packet, it is to be submitted on our website, as it cannot be accepted any other way, such as email, fax, or mail, or even dropped off at our main office. The only way that we would accept a completed request for tenancy approval packet is by being submitted on our website. And this helps us to keep track, to streamline the process, and to avoid any errors that may occur.
Yeah, so when the RAP is submitted online, it goes into a project management system called Airtable. And so that helps our inspectors get notified as soon as possible that that inspection needs to be ordered. And so that is why it's so important that these get submitted online also.
So this is the actual first page of the request for tenancy approval. This is a HUD form. It's pretty much self-explanatory. You will put down the tenant's address, the proposed rent, security deposit, the unit, the date of where the unit is available for inspection, such as also the date where the lease can start, the number of bedrooms, the year constructed, who pays the utilities. And then, of course, don't worry about completing where the section where it says Tacoma Housing Authority official use only, as we will complete that on our end. Here is the second page of the request for tenancy approval. We want to take a look at the owner certifications, if there's any other units that are also receiving housing assistance payments from any other public housing authorities. And on the bottom right, you will see this should always be completed by the tenant. If this section is not completed by the tenant, then we, as a Tacoma Housing Authority staff, we don't know if this tenant was issued a shopping voucher or if they're in the process of moving, because sometimes these do tend to float around. So it is essential to make sure that that bottom right is completed by the tenant first before they hand it over to you. And then, of course, on the left is where you will complete your information. So Tacoma Housing Authority also offers shared housing if a tenant chooses to participate in shared housing. And this briefly describes what the shared housing, what it does as, because we have their payment standards for a shared housing is actually, it reduces the full amount, and it goes by, the room where the tenant rents at, and the same thing as it goes for utilities as well. And so this is basically just like an agreement between the landlord and the tenant that they will be entering in a shared housing unit.
And if it's not a shared housing situation, don't even worry about completing this form. You could always just move on to the next form.
And this form right here is also part of the request for tenancy approval packet. This is Tacoma Housing Authority smoke detector and carbon monoxide certification. This form is to be completed by the landlord or agent and in return to Tacoma Housing Authority the same time as submitting the completed request for tenancy approval. This is a disclosure of information on lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards form that is to be completed by the leasor, leasee, and or agent. This form is also included in the request for tenancy approval. And this form primarily is to have leasors disclose if the housing is built before 1978, if there is a presence of known lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards in a dwelling unit.
Thank you. So inspections. So again, we have housing quality standards inspections. THA inspector will call to schedule that inspection. Our goal is within 5 business days or sooner of receiving the request for tenancy approval. And I feel like we have the world's best inspectors here. Our housing provider partners love working with them. So I will send out a link to our housing provider handbook, and in that handbook has an inspection checklist. Unit should be vacant and move-in ready, and your representative or yourself must be present at that initial inspection, and repairs can cause move-in delays. So our clients can pay above our payment standards as long as the unit is determined rent reasonable. And so basically our inspectors run comps or comparable evaluations to units that are similar in size, bedroom size, amenities, and location to justify if the rent is above our payment standards. So this is kind of an example of what they run when the rent reasonable valuation. Yeah.
Here you can see an example of what the step process is before one of Tacoma Housing Authority's participants moves into a unit. The landlord or agent is to complete the entire request for tenancy approval, which is also known as the RAFTA, and to submit the RAFTA on Tacoma Housing Authority's website. Once Tacoma Housing Authority has received the RAFTA, THA will determine if the rent is reasonable and affordable. Once approved, Tacoma Housing Authority will inspect the unit to ensure that it meets the housing quality standards. And then once the unit has passed inspection, Tacoma Housing Authority must obtain the signed lease and then will execute the housing assistance payment contract.
Yep, and then we are able to send the payment out to you guys, but please, please, please do not sign a lease agreement until the inspection has passed. That is very, very important.
So signing a lease, once the unit has passed inspection, the lease is to be signed with the tenant and the lessor. And the lease cannot exceed or it cannot be over 12 months. And then once the lease has been signed by both parties, please send Tacoma Housing Authority a copy of the lease and the move-in date to our customer care team. Once we receive that, then Tacoma Housing Authority will send a housing assistance payment contract to the landlord for review and for signature. And again, once we receive the signed HAP contract, that is when we will issue the first payment. So this is an example of what the housing assistance payment contract looks like. If you want to know what's included in a contract, you can view the entire document on HUD's website by searching for HAP contract at the search engine. The contents of the HAP contract has 3 parts, such as the contract information, which is, where you can see number 2, which is the tenant, the contract rent, household, initial lease term, initial rent to owner, and an initial housing assistance payment. And then it has the body of the contract. And then at the very end is the tenancy addendum. Your first payment will include the payment amount retroactive to the date on that housing assistance payment contract. After the initial housing assistance payment, you will begin receiving payments on the first of each month thereafter if you choose direct deposit to the bank account. Payments are not released until a signed HAP contract is returned. If the signed HAP contract does not return to Tacoma Housing Authority within 60 days, the contract will be voided and need to be resubmitted to us again, or needs to be reached out to us, and then we will need to resubmit again for signature, excuse me. So the prorated payment letter of or ladder of is the date where the unit passes inspection, the initial lease term begin date, or the first day after the tenant's previous assisted lease ends.
So again, with lease enforcement, we cannot enforce your lease agreement, but we can help. So best practices for lease enforcement: follow the same process you would with non-subsidized renters. File those proper notices to tenants, and please give those notices to our customer care team, and we'll make sure you have that email address. Conduct periodic inspections to maintain your unit and housing quality standards inspections. And again, email all notices to customercare@tacomahousing.org. So upon receiving copies of those notices, we can meet with the clients to remind them of their program responsibilities and obligations, notify them that their voucher could be terminated for noncompliance, and refer them to agencies that can provide additional assistance. Again, we have a client support and empowerment department that might be able to refer folks for other outside resources. So, but we don't know what we don't know. So if we don't get those lease violations from you guys, then we can't help. So.
Yes, please. If there's any 14-day notices or 3-day notice, any kind of notices that is posted to one of our participants' door or sent to them in the mail or served to them, please send us a copy so we are included in the loop and we can follow up with our participants, because that is part of our participants' obligations is to they have their responsibilities, and if we don't know what's going on, then we can't follow up on our end.
Yeah. After the initial lease, tenant can go month to month or sign a new lease. The HAP contract requires 60 days notice of rent increase. Rent reasonableness is determined before we can approve the rent change request. And one thing we didn't cover is lease terms, and lease terms can be anything. It can be month to month, it can be 3 months. As long as it's not over 1 year, we can accept any lease term.
And also I want to highlight too, so let's say that, one of, our participants is, in a 12-month lease with you, and their lease ended and now they are on a month-to-month. However, there's month-to-month fees. We do want it to make it known that unfortunately, Tacoma Housing Authority does not pay those month-to-month fees. Yeah. That is our participants' responsibility to pay those month-to-month fees until they sign a new lease with a contract rent.
That's a good point. Yeah. So a housing provider contact form. So you use this form to submit request for tenancy approval packet, or you can use the link on the RAFTA packet. If you are doing a new owner or agent setup or changes, so if you are a property management company and you're taking over property management for a unit or building that has one of our clients living there, you would select this option. So we will start making payments to you and stop making payments to the old property management company. If you buy a property that has one of our clients in it, it's really important that you fill this out and select new owner or agent setup or changes. And so we can start paying you and we stop paying the old owner. If you need to update your contact information, please use this selection. If you need to update the email address, phone number, mailing address. If you want to update your banking information, if you were receiving a paper check and you want to start receiving direct deposit, or if you want to stop receiving direct deposit, or if you need to change banks, please select this option. So you can notify us 2 different ways about concerns regarding a THA client. You can use the housing provider contact form. You can upload notices here, or you can email the customer care team. So what ends up happening when you use this form and select concerns regarding a THA client, it goes directly to our customer care team. So there's no need to do both things. We are going to help out on any submission that you guys decide to use, whether it be housing provider contact form or emailing them directly. If you have payment questions, please select that option. If you have rent change questions, you submitted a rent change request and it's 60 days over since you submitted that rent change request, and you're like, what's going on? We haven't heard from anybody, select this option. And if there's any other reasons not covered here, please go ahead and use the housing provider contact form. And we really implemented this. So again, we have about 27 to 30 housing specialists here. And if somebody was out of the office on medical leave, it might get held up in their email box for a long time. And we really just wanted to streamline our processes. And that's why we have our housing provider contact form now. So it goes, all these submissions go into a project management system, and we're able to track all of them and make sure everything is getting answered, because we have almost, I think, 800 landlord partners, and over 2,500 households that we're making payments on behalf of. And so we have a lot of work coming into us every day. And so it's really important that we're able to track those and make sure to get your guys' questions answered within a timely manner. So yeah. Rent change requests. So THA must approve any changes to the rent charged to our clients. If you want to request a rent change request, do it online. And I'll make sure you guys have that link. And they must be submitted to Tacoma Housing Authority at least 2 months prior to the date of the proposed increase.
So tenant move out, once a tenant has moved out of one of your units or homes, it is advised to complete a move out inspection just to kind of see if there is any damage caused by the tenant, or document if there is any monies owed by the tenant, other expenses such as outstanding bills, etc. And that documentation is also known as a move out disposition. And if Tacoma Housing Authority doesn't receive that move out disposition, then we can't follow up on our end if there's any overdue rent or damages caused by the tenant. We can't follow up with our participant because we don't have that documentation. But let's say that, you know, we do have that we did obtain a move out disposition from you, then we can definitely follow up with the participants and see if they need any assistance from our client support empowerment, or if they need a referral to other local community agencies that can help them with monies owed to you. The voucher conditional on repayment. And also THA cannot make the tenant pay for any damages. But again, like what we said, that we can refer the tenant to other local community agencies that may help grant them assistance paying for those damages to a unit, if there's any.
And then we have our customer care team. And so the customer care team handles all correspondence for the rental assistance department. So notices, anything that has to do with our clients, you will send emails to our customer care team. Or if you have any questions, you can call the 253-207-4400 as well. And so the Washington State Landlord Mitigation Program is really great. It's ran by the Department of Commerce, and folks that are renting, if you're renting to one of our households and they damage your unit above the damage deposit, you could access up to $5,000 for damage mitigation. And we also have a training with the Department of Commerce. We recorded that and put that up on our YouTube channel. And so I will make sure you guys know how to access the YouTube channel so you can watch that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to the Department of Commerce, but it's a really, really helpful program, especially for housing providers that are renting to our clients. It's just an additional insurance in a sense that will help with qualifying damages. It's really, really important that you have the move-in condition report signed by both you and the tenant upon move-in and move out, before and after photos of the damages and the repairs, and the receipts and invoices from the repairs as well. And the Department of Commerce is pretty easy to work with in getting these funds. It's really also important that you know you need a vendor ID number through the state of Washington. But if you visit this website, https://commerce.wa.gov/landlord fund, you can get all the information that you need. Housing provider resources. Again, one thing I love about my job is I get to find resources for our housing providers. So our partnerships are successful. And so we have this list of housing provider resources in the back of our handbook that I'm going to send out in an email. We have our website. And again, you have a landlord engagement team here. So if you have any operational questions, or just a number of things, you're more than welcome to reach out to me anytime. And I have a cell phone that you can call or text me on, whatever works best for you. So we have a free vacant unit listing form, and I send an email out on the 10th of each month with that link for you to list your vacant units. And we have had so many units listed with us since we launched this form back in March of last year. I think we're close to 1,000 units have been listed with us, and our partners just keep listing units with us. So thank you guys so much. It's completely free. You can add your photos, showcase your amenities. And again, we just share those directly with our clients that are shopping for housing. So a couple of differences between Tacoma Housing Authority and Pierce County Housing Authority. Tacoma is moving to work. Folks with 50% area median income are eligible to get our housing choice vouchers. So our voucher, 2 people for 1 bedroom voucher. So for example, if there's 2 people in a household, they'll be issued a 1 bedroom voucher. If there's 4 people in the household, they'll be issued a 2 bedroom voucher. They'll pay about 28.5% of their household income towards rent, with the exception if they're paying above the payment standard, then they'll pay a little bit more. Lease-up jurisdiction, city of Tacoma and 2.5 miles around the city of Tacoma, or all of Pierce County for most of our special programs voucher clients. And again, clients can pay above the payment standards if the unit is rent reasonable. So Pierce County Housing Authority has a little bit higher area median income requirement. Their voucher size is a little bit different, well, a lot different than ours. So the 1 bedroom will be assigned for each 2 people within the household, unless they are people of the opposite sex, other than spouses, partners, and children under the age of 7. Clients will pay 30% of their adjusted monthly income towards rent and utilities. They cannot exceed 40%. Their lease-up jurisdiction is all of Pierce County, with the exception of the city of Tacoma limits, except for 2 voucher types. I believe emergency housing vouchers and BASH vouchers can lease up inside of our city of Tacoma jurisdiction. And clients, again, cannot pay more than 40% of their income towards rent at initial lease up. So yeah, but a lot of folks think that we are the same housing authority. And although they're our partners, we are not the same housing authority. And that is all we have for today.